Okay, so now we are going to look at editing images for the web. Okay, so let's just go ahead and get started by we're going to be editing the same image as before, the same portrait. So we're going to double click to open it, Photoshop, and here it comes. Okay, so we're going to, same as before, use the embedded profile, press OK. Alright. Going to fit onto the screen using that. Okay. So the first thing we want to do is check the color profile. And so this we may not have to actually change it, but we're going to first go to Convert to Profile under Edit, Convert to Profile. And the one you want to have it at is sRGB IEC blah 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 blah. It'll probably be the only one with a long name. If it isn't already that, you want to find it under this profile thing. Right, it should be up towards the top under all these other RGBs. This one, because this is the one that's most used in on the internet, sort of standard on the internet. So then, if you already have it, then just press cancel. If you don't, then select that one you want, and press OK. So I'm gonna press cancel because I already have it at that. Okay. The next part is we're gonna change the image size. So basically, sort of the big difference between like the print and the web is when you're printing something, you want to get it as a high quality image as possible. You really don't care about file sizes or anything like that because, well, there is no file size in a newspaper. You print it as nice as you can, as best as possible as you can. It has its own limitations there, but on the internet, our limitation is how much data people are downloading, and I don't want to wait 30 seconds for an image. Right, so in order to make it go as fast as possible, we have to reduce the resolution as much as possible. And images on the internet don't actually have to be that big in terms of pixels. So first we can go to image size, and we want to check resample image, right? Because we're actually going to change the image size, the image quality. So you actually want that checked. And then under the width and the height, for this particular one, this is a portrait. For the width, I'd go for 300. They'll usually be in some sort of proportion, usually from 3 to 4. That'll usually be the proportion it is, and that's the one that it is in this image. Or you could also do 600 by 800, but that would actually probably be too big. That'd be an image that would fill up like the entire browser window. So for this one, which is a portrait, we could put it at 300 by 400. Notice that if you keep the constrain proportions check, which it already should be checked by default, if you change one dimension, the width, it'll change the height automatically in proportion to that change. Alright, so it'll stay in proportion, which is very nice. So then once you have that change at 300 by 400, you can press OK. Alright, if this were a landscape, by the way, you'd want it at 400 by 300, right? You just switch these. Okay, so then you could press OK. So now it's a lot smaller, so now we actually have to zoom in more to fit it to the screen, so we go to View, Fit on Screen. Okay. Actually, I think we want to go View Actual Pixels would be better. There we go. Okay, so then that's its full size. That's how big it will actually appear on the screen. And that looks right. You don't want it any bigger than it should appear on screen when the web page is loaded. Okay, so now getting started on the editing part, we can create our levels, which is always the first adjustment layer we want. So go to this black and white symbol here, click on that, and choose levels from that menu. Okay, and this one so we're just gonna edit this. So we take this left handle, the black one, this controls where the blacks are, put it to the left hand side of this data, so about right here looks good, would be good. And then we adjust the white point, this right slider, move this to the tip of that data. Okay, we can already see it's looking a lot better. Now, the nice thing about doing images for the web is you don't have to worry about it printing too dark, because how it looks on your screen is exactly how it'll look on the web. So you don't have to worry about the whole printing and bleeding thing. So just I think this one could give you a little bit lighter, just not too much, just a little bit, and that looks pretty good for that image. And we're going to be following sort of basically a similar process to what we had already done with the color print. So we're going to get out our color balance, right? So create a new adjustment layer, click on that same icon, choose color balance on there. Just like before, this image still looks a little bit red and yellow, so we're going to take this slider and move it towards a cyan, away from red. So about like that. This one go like that. And this one a little bit that way. Okay. Remember, you can always see how, what kind of a difference each of these layers made by just clicking this little eye icon here, right here, to switch if they're visible or not. If I click here, you can see this is what it looked like before. It was red, a little too red. Then we click on it again, and this is with the color balance on, and it sort of balanced the colors, made them less red. Like I said in the previous video, you won't always have to use the color balance. Usually, today's cameras are pretty good with balancing the colors themselves, but there are some images where it just doesn't turn out too good and you do have to do that. Okay, and then the last adjustment layer you want to do is curves. So go ahead and click on that same icon and go up to curves. Alright, and we're just going to use this to add a little bit more contrast. Alright, so up in these presettings, we want to choose linear contrast. Alright, and that'll give it a little bit more contrast, which helps the image quite a bit. So then we can sort of see how each of our edits affected it by hiding each of them. Right, so this is what it looked like originally, kind of dull, not very good looking. Added the levels, improved it quite a bit with the lighting, color balance, made it a little more neutral, not as red, and then curves just gave it a lot more contrast. And again, so that looks a lot nicer. And so now we finished. So we finished all the editing. So now all we have to do is we can go File, and first we're going to save a Photoshop file, just in case we want to go back and edit these. What are they called? Adjustment layers. So we'll just save as. And then we want to add sort of a web thing on the end, so we'll do underscore WEB web, and we'll save the Photoshop file. Okay. Alright, so that was easy. So now the next part, and this is where it gets really different from when you're doing images for print. And alright, so what we're going to do is, instead of going File, Save As, we're going to choose Save for Web and Devices. This is a whole different save dialog for web. So we're going to go click on Save for Web and Devices. And it'll bring up this fancy new screen, right? And so on the left here, this is what the original looks like, what it looks like in your Photoshop file. This is how it's going to look when you save it. This is obviously not the one we want. So over here in this panel, right, at the top, besides this preset, what we want right here, just below that preset selector, is the file format. We want it in JPEG if it's a photo. So then choose JPEG from this menu. Okay, there we go. So that looks better. And then for the quality, you want to choose, I would go with 75. Okay, and that looks good, right? So this is sort of our web optimized version of this photo, right? It's saved in such a way that it'll download really fast, so people who go on a website don't have to wait a long time for the image to load. Okay, right, and you can what gives you an idea of sort of how fast it will is down here below. It gives you the file size, right? This is the original file size, 352K. and then the new file size of the saved image is 47.07K. Alright, so you want it around 40 or less than 40, preferably, but you don't want, 60 or 70 or 80. That's, gets too big. And that's, a lot of that we made it smaller just by making the image size smaller, right? So then once you have it at JPEG and you have the quality at 75, then it should be ready to press save. So go down here, click save, and it'll save it as JPEG, and all that looks good. So then just press save. Okay, yeah, and that's it. We've saved that image for the web.